It's easier for me now.
All right. So welcome everyone to the event Navigating Choppy Waters of Organizational Change with Alice Ovoroa. So Alice, pardon me if I have not pronounced your surname correctly. I hope I did so. I am Priya Patra and I am the lead of Women Power of Network. We also have all our leads on this call today. First of all, Cecilia, our Latin America lead. Cecilia.
Hi, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thanks for joining us. And thanks, Alice, for being here. I'm looking forward of your presentation. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. And Cecilia is also our Zoom master. So thank you, Cecilia, for taking this additional role. We also have Grace Johnson, our Africa region lead. Grace.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, Grace, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Johnson, and I'm from Nigeria. I'm the Africa region lead for Women Power. Welcome, and thank you, Alice, for honoring our invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace, and thank you, Grace, for bringing Alice for us on this platform. We have Andrea. She is our V mentor lead. Andrea, over to you.
Good morning, good evening, good night, everyone. So glad to be here. I am delighted to serve in capacity of the We Mentor Lead and to bring to you very qualified women who will serve as our mentors every quarter, but you'll learn more about that as we get into our session today.
Thank you, Andrea. And Andrea joins us from the?
I'm in the Bahamas.
The beautiful Bahamas. Are you on the beach today, Andrea, now?
Not yet, but it's a very beautiful day. So my daughter and I are planning to have a beach day later.
Okay, great. And of course, we have Alufanke, the editor of our monthly newsletter, Empowered.
Hi, everybody. My name is Olufunke, and I'm glad to be here. Like Priya said, I'm editor of the Empowered magazine, publication, newsletter, whichever one. I'm also in Nigeria, and it's nice to be here. Alice, welcome, and looking forward to this.
Thank you, Alufanke. So everyone, please say hello to each other and let us know from which part of the world you have joined us today. You see the Menti poll on your screen. The code is 4720-4310. Some housekeeping rules before we get started. We are here to celebrate women leadership. And we are all speaking on our individual capacity. Our views expressed here do not in any way represent the organization that we work for. This meeting right now has been recorded. So if you are uncomfortable in any ways, please feel free to drop off. Or if not, you are welcome to join our celebration. And I will take a few more minutes before we, hand over the stage to Grace to walk you through our community updates. And as I said, I am the lead Women Power Up Network. And this is something we remind ourselves and our community every month just to ensure that we are on the right track. So we are a community. We are not a business as such. And this community was incepted on Jan 26, 2020, just before COVID. And we took advantage of the COVID situation in the sense, the virtual world, and we expanded ourselves all across the globe. And a few minutes back, Alice was saying, oh, so this is officially a global platform. And she is representing the country of Uganda today. So yes, we have women representing different continents, different countries on this platform. And our vision is to empower everyone, not only women, with the right support and the skills. And we hope to transform the future someday. And right now we're just providing some a platform where we get in some inspiring women to come and talk about trending topics, and that way we enhance the leadership qualities of our members here. We truly believe that you don't have to be a expert, a person with a lot of knowledge to help each other. And we just believe that even if you're good enough, you're just amazing. Because when such good enough people come together, we definitely power each other up. And together we rise. And as of now, we have some 863 members, part of our LinkedIn groups, part of our Facebook groups, and I'll be posting the link on the chat window soon. So if you're not yet part of our groups, please join us. And, of course, that will ensure that together we will definitely rise. And these are our partners and our supporters. Before we move on, we want to give it a shout out to our community partners, Agile in Education USA, Hana Siddiqui, PMI Slovenia chapter, and the President Marco, PMI Buenos Aires, Argentina chapter, Adriana, and the PMO officers, Leonardo, IAPM, Linda Ottman, and agnostic agile community, of course, the latest in our partners community. Please join agnostic agile, this amazing community as well. And our technology partner is We Are Ready Now, and sponsor of this entire Zoom platform is We Are Ready Now. So thank you everyone for supporting us as always. And of late, we have been partnering with Scrum Day London as well. And there's an amazing conference that is coming up on 14th June in London. And one of our members, Hana Siddiqui, is the keynote speaker as well. So do join the conference if you're in and around London. And with this, I hand over the stage to Alfunke to talk about our Empowered newsletter.
Amazing. Thank you, Priya. It's really been a journey. It's been an interesting ride, working on the Empowered newsletter. And we've grown, we've seen traction, and almost 600 subscribers added since the last 4-5 months or so. But we are still pushing further. Our goal is to do 5,000 perhaps before the end of the year. So that would be a good one. Our plea and request for support would be for engagement, and for people to come on programs like this, not just to subscribe to the newsletter. So we're looking to increase participation, contribution, especially for the membership spotlight segment of the newsletter. So that would be a nice one to have people here and of course outside of here joining, contribute to that segment of the newsletter. And of course, make it a duty to share the newsletter, engage with the newsletter, and just spread the word. Yeah, so thank you. I would be dropping the link to the subscription for the newsletter in the chat box. So please just access it and then just, I invite you to subscribe. Thank you.
Yeah, and Funky, if you want to put the link to the submission for the member spotlight, that also would be great if someone wants to be in the spotlight.
Amazing, amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing job, Alufunke and team. So, I mean, we have around 3,818 subscribers and 580 subscribers in the last 1 month. That's amazing. So thank you everyone for your support and Alufunke for driving this initiative so diligently. I don't even have to think about the newsletter anymore. I know it will be there. It will be published on the 5th of every month. So thank you everyone. And with this, I hand over the stage to Cecilia to tell us about our last month's event.
Thank you, Priya. Yes, last month event was very inspiring. It was our Latin America event. We had the first Colombian women in aerospace industry. She was Giovanna Estefania Ramirez Ruiz, and she was very inspiring because it's quite difficult to have a young women, a young lady in the aerospace. So her presentation was awesome. And you can see the recording in our YouTube channel. I will put the link of our channel in the chat box, and let me copy the link of her presentation. Okay. And we had people from different countries in the last event: Argentina, Spain, Japan, yes, USA, Tanzania, Nigeria, and Colombia, of course. And we had this visual summary of the session created by Fanny. Penny is not here today, but she always makes these wonderful visual summaries, and you can connect with Fanny. I will share her LinkedIn. She's a wonderful designer. I love this. Yeah, it's incredible.
She is one of our creative team members, and she does a visual summary of all our events that we have. Usually she does it live. Today she has some class at this point of time, so she could not join, but she will do a visual summary looking at the recording after the event is over. So thank you, Fanny, for your contributions to the community.
Yeah, thank you, Fanny. And
okay,
go to you.
So we will move on to the next section and hand over the session to Grace to introduce the topic and the speaker of the day.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you all for joining the event today. Alice Ora is a change management lead in Uganda.
Okay, Grace, we can't hear you. Do you want me to take this section for you?
For 15 years in organizations, and so she's taking us on the journey of what it means to navigate change in organizations. We will briefly, in a short while, be reading her bio to you. Alice is a highly accomplished banking professional with an impressive track record of over 15 years in the industry. Her expertise spans across a wide range of domains, including strategy, business analysis, change management, risk management, and project management. Throughout her career, Alice has been a champion of business transformations, and she is passionate about helping businesses reach their full potential. She has a reputation for using innovative approaches to drive change and improve business outcomes. Despite her extensive experience and expertise, Alice remains grounded and modest in her approach. She's always eager to learn and grow, and she's committed to continuous improvement in everything she does. Her passion for driving positive change is infectious, and she's an inspiration to all those around her. I must say, in the short while that I've known Alice, she embodies all of this. It's not easy driving change in organizations, especially regional organizations, and the calm with which she works, and she's really a fun person to work with. I guess she brings this aura of calmness into change management, and we know it's a really touchy topic, especially in this era of agile transformations and all. And so I guess our organization is also currently trying to do an agile transformation or in the process. Her wealth of experience she's going to bring to the table to help us navigate what it means to navigate change management in organizations. So welcome, a warm welcome from all the ladies from all the regions of the world represented here. Alice, please, you can take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. It's definitely a big pleasure to be here. And really, as the first speaker to represent Uganda, that's a big deal on my end as well. So the expectations are really high. Let me hope that I can really bring out this aspect very clearly today. So just to give you a quick brief about myself, I am Alice Owara. I have worked in several organizations. Two of those organizations have been, through a merger and acquisition, and I've been right there in the middle trying to figure out, how do we make these two entities merge and become one entity that now finally moves on. But I've also been in so many other different roles where I'm setting up structures, setting up, departments, setting up new ways of doing things. And it has been quite an interesting journey. I'm not an expert. I'm still learning. And that's why really what I bring today is to just share some of the stories in my journey. And you'll see some of the things that inspire me, those, that have made me think twice about how to make this experience even better, for the different stakeholders that we work with. So I'll just share my screen briefly. Just let me know if I'm audible enough, whether the sound is coming through clearly. Okay. So just to really set the context, we are in a space which is very confusing for most of us. Lots of uncertainty, so many changes that are coming in so rapidly. And as a change practitioner in my organization, the thing that comes to mind is, how is everyone dealing with all of this? How can you bring in all the frameworks to help you find, that one clear, sure way of making sure that your organization is adapting as it goes? As you can see, there are so many changes that create silos in terms of how people think about it, because they have different perspectives, and that creates silos across the organization. But you also have a lot of what we call accidental design in processes, because people are trying to just navigate their way through these changes. And there's a lot of pressure that is coming in for the teams that are in project management, change management, trying to see what is the best way, to invest resources, have focus in the right places and still get that result. So what we see now is that there's quite a bit of ambiguity happening within the organizations. The customer experiences are fragmented. This piece that you're seeing on the screen, comes in from S2E transformation. These are the guys that have been trying to bring, the whole topic of business architecture to life. How do we translate the big ideas into tangible projects, implementable projects that can clearly demonstrate the value of how organizations are evolving? So change is something that definitely is affecting all of us. I'll just take a pause here and just check in with all of you. What trend are you currently trying to get ahead of in your organization? So if you just go to slido.com and punch in those digits, you should be able to type in something so that we can just get a sense of where we are in our respective organizations. Okay, I see that we still don't have people who have gone in there. I hope it's something that everyone can access.
Yes,
Okay.
I just click. Let me see.
All right, that's okay. I'll get back to this just to check in. All right, there's one answer, technology. All right, as the rest try to type in, obviously what we are focusing right now on, you hear a lot about sustainability. You're hearing a lot about generative artificial intelligence. You see a lot of geopolitic aspects coming through in terms of how we are thinking. Definitely diversity, inclusion, and all equity. Those are things that are pretty much coming in, and it is good that we are encountering the same stuff everywhere. Okay, so what I'll be doing today is to just share my story, because what I believe is that when we share stories, our experiences, then you'll get a sense of, how my thought process arrives at what I think is helping me to anchor, how do we move this organization to adapt to the next change? And that is through business architecture. For those who don't know about business architecture, we'll just gauge at a certain point to see where everyone is, so that by the time I explain it, it is something that I can simplify. So my journey starts from a very personal experience. I was about 15 years old. I walk into my mom's office. She works in the central bank. And of course, that when you go to your mom's office, she's trying to show you around. She's trying to show that, this is where you could potentially be in the future. This is where I spend all my hours. So when I come back home tired, this is what it means. So she decided to use her lunch break to go to the bank. And she also wanted to show me that side of life about, finances, how banks operate. So we walk into this little dim banking hall for one of the banks in Uganda. And she reaches out to the bank teller and, tries to greet her. The bank teller is just quiet. And she had this very annoyed expression on her face. I just couldn't understand what was going on. So my mom thought probably, she hadn't been heard. So she repeated her greeting again. And then the teller looks at her and says, "Can you not see that it is my lunchtime?" And I could see that my mom was so embarrassed. I felt so bad. I was like, okay, if this is what banking means, this needs to change. Because as a child, they're looking at her mom. You see how she has been embarrassed, and you're thinking to yourself, no, this can't be how banking is done. So I made up my mind that when I finish school, I'll join banking and change things. And as fate would have it, I ended up in the same bank for my first job. And I started off as a bank teller, and I decided, yes, let me see how this works. What would, make someone determine, when to serve a customer and when not to serve a customer. So I changed things from that perspective of, let us have a situation where we know that for as long as you are in the till, you need to serve the customer because they can't see you. So why would you say, I'm in my lunch break when the customer can clearly see you in the till? So I changed that, and I felt pretty good about it, but I didn't spend a lot of time in there. The thing that drove me to another institution was just to experience what a merger and acquisition felt like. So I moved into this institution. It was just, it had just been acquired by another regional bank, and it was going through a series of changes. But we had about a year or so before the changes could immediately take effect. I was not at the stage where I was making strategic decisions. I was in a branch. So what I was seeing was at the tail end of what, was being implemented as change. Now, just to give you a perspective about the Ugandan banking industry, we have the commercial banks, then you have what we call the Microsoft deposit-taking institutions, and then you have, of course, the microfinance institutions. Now, this particular organization that I was working for was transitioning from a microfinance institution into a commercial bank. Now, what we experienced there was that the people we call credit officers or the lending officers were like demigods in the community. They would walk out into the community and you would hear different people calling them, teacher, because essentially they were seen as the people who delivered financial literacy in the communities. But the one thing that I always love to hear from the credit officers were the stories as they were in the field. They would move out there, and then they would see, the transformation that was happening in the different households, seeing the children that were, not in school, didn't have shoes, finally getting the shoes on, seeing the mud houses being transformed into concrete houses. And it was a sense of fulfillment that they received from that, that made them, continue doing what they did. And listening to those stories, I would see that, there was something that was changing in the community. People got to know each other a lot more because now they were forced to, sit in these financial literacy classes together. I listen, to this person they call teacher, who was a credit officer, telling them about how to manage their finances, how to make records for their businesses, and also be able to demonstrate a banking history that could actually give them the loans that they were seeking for. And most of them eventually, evolved out of those groups, and they started demanding to, get loans as individuals. But the majority, because they didn't have collateral or security that was acceptable to the bank, they had to remain in those groups. And that means that they now needed to co-guarantee each other within the groups, something that, forced them to get to know a little bit more about each other. But the credit officers also understood that, they needed to keep those groups in there because that's the only way they would guarantee, the money that they would lend out would immediately come back to the bank to be disbursed to other people. So learning that and then getting to appreciate the different aspects of the branch operations, how the customers were onboarded, how the accounts were managed, how the cash management was done. That has always been, how curious I was about the organizations I worked for. So in effect, I became like that curious architect. I didn't know that role was being called an architect until all these other frameworks came into play. But I realized now, so many years after, that what we were trying to do was to just map out, the branch operations, understand how everything worked in order to deliver, that service to the customer. But in this organization that I was working for, a lot was cascaded, and you were more recipients of the change rather than people who participated in how the change was done. And that came, of course, with so many interesting things. You would see that as this new organization took over the one that is existing, the products would change, the customers they would focus on, that also would change. You would get to see so many customers that you were used to seeing in the banking hall now disappear, and then you would get new sets of customers. Then you get to understand that, okay, the organization is changing because the customers it's serving now are different from the customers that it used to serve. The products that they are bringing on board are really not targeting, the microfinance type customers that they used to target. They're now looking for those that have graduated from the microfinance setup, and they are willing to provide security. And then you get to see, how, new investments into systems will bring more efficiency. And then you'll get to see, how less and less manual work you begin to do as a person who's experiencing change at the tail end. But because my mind was that curious, looking at how this branch operated and how the changes were coming in from the head office and impacting the branch, I sort of knew where all the blocks fit. And then I understood which block was going to change as these different communications were coming in from the head office. And that helped me understand, okay, there's change that is chaotic, but there's change that also just, speaks to, the purpose of the organization. The organization is changing its purpose, its reason for existence. So that means its branding, the communication it sends out there, and everything about it, including its stories, would definitely change. But then you would also understand that for that purpose, for that story, for that content in terms of communication that was being sent out, for it to stick, in terms of how the organization organized itself back end, that also had to evolve. So we had to change systems just to demonstrate that, we are now more efficient. We had to change processes, to demonstrate that, the way we are doing things is different from how we used to do it back then. The way we, organized, even within the teams, the titles changed. The organogram of the branch changed. So all those changes were done in such a way that there was a structured way in which the organization was evolving, but it also helped us understand that, okay, if I can't fit into this story anymore, if I don't align with the purpose, then it is time for me to look for the next place to be. What was interesting is that because we didn't have a lot of focus on automation back then, it was just getting, some of these robust core banking systems, putting them in place, trying to automate what you can, and then the rest you really focused on compliance. So you would have processes being formulated at the head office, and then you would have what we call compliance officers coming in to make sure that the people are complying with the processes, and that's the one way they could guarantee consistency and uniformity across. But of course, over time, I got to realize that doesn't work. If you want people to comply with your policies or your processes, the best route really is to automate and then allow for flexibility in the things that matter, which is in the customer experience and in how people collaborate with each other. The last part of that journey was really the different job descriptions that I went through as I moved from one role to the next. And what I loved about all the roles that I took on in my journey is that I could define whatever it is that I wanted to do. So in effect, I became a change manager. So whether it was a compliance role, whether it was a risk management role, whether it was an operations role, it was essentially a change management role, because that's essentially what I would do: go in, change the processes, speak to the investment that needed to be done in specific systems, and then reorganize the people just to make sure that, we are aligned, in terms of delivering the outcomes that the organization wanted. So moving on from that organization and then moving on to others, I got the sense that the customer was only attracted to an organization because of a need that they had in their lives. And that need, they believed things about different organizations. So they believed that if I wanted a mortgage, this is the bank that I would go to, because the bank postured itself as an organization that had deep expertise in that space. I had the stories, from different customers that made it credible. But then if they had a need for business, they would, seek out another organization. So as it is in most economies, I believe most customers are multi-banked. And that is because they see specific things in different organizations that they believe will be better fulfilled. And appreciating that, you get to see so many interesting scenarios unfold, things that you thought were not really the game changers, but ended up being the game changers. So in one organization, setting up what we call a business center, it seemed like, something that just didn't make sense. It just seemed like, setting up a big piece of space and then getting so many relationship managers in there and creating that atmosphere of you have come to the one-stop center for all your home requirements. And the first time it opened up, I just sat in there just to watch what would happen. You see this, young couple walking in, a guy disinterested, and you see a very focused young lady walking in because, this is the one decision that she wants to make sure, it goes right. So you see the gentleman just walking in, very uninterested. He sits down. And the lady is here looking at all the brochures, trying to figure out, okay, where's my starting point? She's asking all the questions. And then you get a sense of where they are in their journey. This is someone who believes, I'm starting a home. And in starting my home, I need to, move away from renting different spaces and just, build a home. And for her, she believed that that was the way to go. And then try to get her spouse or her partner interested in the conversation. And the discussions between the relationship manager and the couple was so interesting to observe, because you could see, the more information that was received, the more excitement, the lady had. And you could see the guy who was not as interested now joining the conversation, because suddenly something has been sparked. There's a need that has been, identified for him, and how it has connected with the bank solution. And then he's asking all these other questions. Then suddenly he's taking lead. He's saying, where is that? Where is that? And it was just interesting to see. So it just takes me back to the whole aspect of, organizations create products, but ultimately those products are useless until you understand the customer journey, understanding where these people are in their life, understanding what is it that motivates them, what are the behaviors that you need to now see, what triggers them to have the right behaviors towards the solutions that you're trying to provide for them. And eventually you get to see decisions being made because of an exciting conversation that has happened between a relationship manager and these two young individuals. And you can see that, their need has been made, their journey has been understood. Now they can get the product that makes sense for them at that very point. So moving on from there, I had the best opportunity to work with one of the leading management consulting firms. And I'd always been curious, what would it mean to work in one of those consulting firms? And I remember the first day we met these people, they looked polished. They came in and they had all these fancy words they were using. They were so organized, so structured. And I was like, I want to be like these guys. What does it take to organize like this? Because immediately they came in, they were asking all sorts of questions. And I was like, why are you asking these questions? And it became clear to me when they had the kickoff meeting that they were trying to build a profile for the organization. They were just trying to understand the organization, not from the perspective of this is the work that we are going to do for the organization. We're not going to formulate a strategy for them. We are going to understand them and then identify with them, so that as we walk this journey, we are going to be, walking the journey with them. By the time we give them the deliverable, it is something that they feel they have participated in, they have contributed towards. And looking back, I understood something interesting from them. They were not just trying to identify with us from a personality point of view as, this team leader, linking up with Alice and trying to understand, is the chemistry right? Are they talking well? Do they understand all the do's and don'ts? It wasn't that sort of conversation. It was more of, let me understand what you're thinking as Alice, the person who has been, put in charge of formulating the bank strategy. What are you thinking? And, let's start from there, and then we'll work towards how should we be thinking. And looking back at the conversations, it was more about, this is my understanding of this organization. And how you understand the organization is, it really comes from understanding its purpose. What is the story that you're holding on to? And then going into the elements of how is it designed? What are the capabilities that it has? What are the assets? What are the key processes that we need to be focusing on? And then moving to the customer, what is the product that is out there? And how is that, feeding into the customer journey? What is it the customer wants by the time they come to this organization? And it just painted a good picture of what I thought about the organization, and it gave them that perspective. And they also started looking at, how are they thinking about it as the outsiders? By the time we brought the two stories together, it was such a powerful visual. And I remember that was the first time I was very intrigued about the concept of business architecture. I started doing a bit of research about it, but you'll notice that a lot of the architecture stuff is more leaning towards IT, and that is the biggest problem we've been trying to solve for so many years when it comes to change management. That conflict that happens between the business and the IT professionals, the IT people having all these technical terms the business does not understand, the business trying to tell the IT guys, come on guys, we just need you to deliver something that will work for us. So that conflict, it's something that I had been trying to work through. So when I understood business architecture and what it tries to, do in terms of collaborating, the different perspectives and bringing them together in such a powerful visual way, for everyone to come on board and understand, okay, this is what the organization is, and this is how the organization tries, to evolve with the different changes that it needs to adapt to. That was very powerful. And the one that I wanted to share with you today is what is called EDGI. I don't know how many of you have come across EDGI, but EDGI is something that has simplified things, at least in my perspective. And their focus is really trying to get the different creative people, the designers, the architects, the people who deliver the projects, the change managers, all onto the same page, so that they can collaborate, so that when the organization is evolving, it is evolving from a perspective that everyone has as a single one, not the different perspectives, each in conflict, each trying to outcompete the other, and ending up with a siloed way of implementing change. So I'll just pause here and also just check in. How familiar are you guys with business architecture before we get into the meat of it?
Oh,
Okay, that gives me at least a good idea of where we stand. All right, so as I get into business architecture, this probably might not be as clear on your side, but I'll just go through it. Business architecture is really just the understanding of the organization design, and you look at it from a perspective of the processes, how you orchestrate the people, the processes, and the systems, and then also have an appreciation of the current state and how you evolve it to the future state. So that basically means that there are what we call base elements. You need to be able to understand these base elements and understand how they contribute to the change initiative that you're trying to bring into play. So you have people. People are those that help in the co-creation of the capabilities. People are the ones that participate in the processes. They are the ones who tell the stories about the organization. They are the ones who aspire to the purpose that you've designed for the organization. So people are the ones, they're the ones who also utilize the systems that you've put in place. So people are a very important part of business architecture, but you need to understand how they are interacting with these different elements within the architecture. Then you have what you call the outcome. What is it that you're trying to realize? Because the understanding of that has been different for so many people. I can give you a situation where I encountered when we were working on a project, everyone had a different understanding of what the outcome was. So it is until we got everyone in the room and said, okay, let us just use the sticky notes and let's pin them up there. What is the outcome that you expect to get? And everyone just put their sticky notes there, and then we realized, wow, what a mess. If we all don't know what outcome we are trying to arrive at, we are in trouble. So we needed to first pause and then understand it is okay. We might have received the business case. We might have received objectives clearly defined. You received the communication, but what is it from your perspective that you believe you're delivering? Because that impacts how people define the requirements, how they will define the processes, how they will even source for the different systems, or how they will build those systems for you to deliver the outcome. So I have learned over time that that is something that is very crucial to align on early on. And there's a structure. Structure is basically how we try to get different things working together. And what we mainly think about when we talk about structure is really on the people side of things, the organizational structure. But there's a lot that we need to be looking at beyond the organizational structure. And we'll get into that. And then, of course, the activity. There's no change that can ever happen if there are no clear activities. So you can't say we are an organization that is now focused on sustainability. And then when you look at the organization and all the activities that are happening, it is totally in conflict with sustainability. So this perspective of Edge's tool, something that really brings everything together. And this is just to explain each of the elements, then I'll just show you how everything comes together. Purpose is why we exist, why the customers that come to us believe in us, and why they keep coming to us for the different things that they are looking for. Content, it's what we communicate, what's on our websites, what we put in our adverts, and how we are communicating with the customers, the story. These stories, I will tell you, very interesting. Management has a different story. The people who work in the organization have their different story about the organization. And when you try to unpack each of these stories, you'll get a very interesting sense of what you call an identity crisis. When organization is one of the intersection points, this is how you bring people together to actually deliver the change. We call it all sorts of things. We call it a steering committee. We call it a project team. We call it a change team. But ultimately, bringing these people together and knowing the right people to bring in when delivering change, it matters. That's where everything works together or falls apart. Then the architecture, which is really the focus, is how are we orchestrating our people, our systems, our processes, and how are we just making all of that come together to deliver what we call a capability. A capability will always have challenges if one of them is failing. If you have processes that were last updated maybe 3 years ago, things have changed, probably practices now have changed, that has never been reflected or updated, that is a challenge. If you have systems that are still working, with the inefficiencies that were built into them because of the processes that were working back then, that is still a very big problem. Assets, those are the things that we need, and use to perform our mission. So these are the, the systems, these are the buildings, whatever it is that you're using to create that product or that service to the customer. And then processes, of course, the activity. Product is make that you offer, whether it's a website, whether it's an ATM, whether it's a branch. That is how people interact and engage with you to receive the products or the services they're looking for. And of course, their journey. What is, at what stage in life are they in? What is their aspiration? What are the goals? What are the things that they're looking for? And how do you contribute to that journey? Then brand ultimately is how the organization postures itself. So in a nutshell, this is how that all comes together. So now when I'm thinking about change, in my mind, I keep thinking about these three different domains: the identity, I'm thinking about the customer experience, and I'm thinking about the architecture. But the one that I emphasize the most is the architecture, because that's where I have a lot more control. That's where my job is, focusing on how do I now evolve the processes? How do I, make sure that the right investments in the right systems are happening? How do we, look at the capabilities that we have in place, and how do we ensure that those capabilities are now evolving to adapt to the changes that we are seeing? And how do all of these work to support the product that we're giving to the customer? So a lot of this, if you don't see it every time you're going through a change initiative, you'll get lost. Because as change happens in the external environment, you will have different people in different spaces trying to do so many other improvements or trying to run change initiatives in their own space. And then you have complexity. But when you bring everyone together and say, this change is happening, let us look at this. How is our identity going to evolve? How is our architecture going to change? And what is the experience that our customers will receive when we do all of this? When you have everyone on the same page, then you can begin to understand which elements am I going to evolve? What is the timing of, when that implementation happens? So this has been very key for me in terms of having that anchor whenever change happens. I just keep looking at this and understanding, okay, this change is going to impact this one element, that one element, and that element. Because as you can see, they are interconnected. Let me just try to get something that I can use to move through this. Yeah, so they are interconnected. When you change a process, you're not just changing it in isolation of all these other aspects. Changing a process basically means the people who perform this process are going to be impacted. So if they're going to be impacted, do they know how their roles are going to change? Have you reflected that? If you change a process, how have you updated that within the asset that you're using? If it is a system, then that system now has to have some enhancements, or you need to replace the system completely because of the change in the process. And then in terms of the capability, as you can see, it's a combination of the organization, the process, and the asset. That is how you have a full capability that you can leverage to differentiate yourself from the competition. So any change that you make on the people side, any change that you make on the system side, it is changing the way this capability is working. Now, this is what differentiates the organization from other organizations. This capability, as it evolves, you are either impacting the customer experience, or you're impacting exactly how the organization identifies itself. As you can see, everything is linked. So I put here a link for you who are interested to dig more into this. It has been very, very helpful on my end to try and just navigate through change. Because as everything is happening, you just want to see, okay, how do I make sure that all this interconnected piece, evolves in the way it should? So that is something that I've just explained. You have the capability that is evolving, and only because different processes either have evolved or the systems have evolved, and this is how everything links. So what is the conclusion that I have to this? Your ability to adapt to change is definitely going to be influenced by the elements that you choose to focus on. When I think about what's happening in Ukraine right now, I try to get any articles around, how are the businesses in Ukraine currently faring, based on the situation there. And it was so interesting, some of the insights that came from one of the McKinsey articles. They said that for businesses or organizations that were, emphasizing purpose, most of the employees there were willing to go in and work despite the circumstances. Of course, they had the challenges, trying to get away from, the war and everything, trying to relocate their families. But because they were so in tune with the purpose of the organization, they kept coming back because they saw it almost like a national duty, to keep those enterprises working, regardless of what was going on. So you'll notice that every change has a way in which it will influence the people within the organization. And you need to be able to see what is it that I am posturing the organization as to the people, to the customers, and how do all these different aspects work. So not knowing the current state is where the problem is, and that's where business architecture comes in. There's a lot of work that you need to do in terms of mapping these elements and understanding, okay, if this is the capability that I have, which systems are impacting that capability, which processes, how do they impact, how do they support the product that is being delivered to the customer, and how do the people who are involved in that process, how are they experiencing everything that's happening in this change area? So I will leave it at that. The last bit that I'll leave with you is just an appreciation that when it comes to change management, it is something that helps us appreciate, the triple loop learning. We can't be focusing on just doing things right, and that is where the single loop learning is. And if you focus on just doing things right, then you miss out on the next. That is the double loop learning. That is, are we doing the right things? And most importantly, the context. This is from Chris Agis. The context of how do we decide what is right? So how do we pick up a change that we need to implement? And how do we decide that it is a change that we're going to prioritize first? And that is where the enterprise aspect comes in at the strategic level. But even more importantly, how do you decide that, the framework, the methods, the way of thinking that you're utilizing to decide what is right is still okay, is still functioning the way it should? So most of us really playing at the level where we're just, questioning, are we doing the right things? But how often do we step back to start questioning whether our way of thinking about deciding what is right is still working the way it should? So I will leave it at that and just check in with everyone. Are there any thoughts or any ideas that have emerged as you were listening to this presentation? Are there any questions? And then I can see some of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, Alufunke, could you moderate the chat, please, if possible? Alufunke, can you hear us? Or are you
Yes,
talking?
I do. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes. Now I can hear.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alice. This was a very enlightening one. Listening to you was really interesting. And just from how you started out with your personal story, I think it was quite engaging, and it just was a good way to kick off the session. Thank you so much. What I hear, especially from the later part of your presentation, had to do with alignment of systems. That's understanding that silos really are destructive, you know. There has to be a collaboration of some sort where all of the systems are in alignment and working together. I think that was so profound. Yes. Just a few questions that I see on the call right now. I was hoping you would be able to speak to that. Andrea was asking if some of the things you were discussing do apply to startups. You know, Andre, do you want to expound on this question so that Alice has a better perspective? Yeah.
No, it's just the question came about when we talked about change management and how we want to look at our current state and our future state, and how would this relate to a startup that doesn't really have any back history. It's just an infancy stage. So there's no like data to say, well, this is how we were operating. They're in startup mode, so they don't have that back information to really call on to look at what a future state would be. How would you advise an organization that is just starting out to implement a business architecture?
That is a very exciting question. And really thinking about business architecture, it comes from a place whereby, do you know how you are designing your enterprise? Now, most of us, when we start off constructing your home, you start off by saying, can I get a blueprint from the architecture? And the blueprint is usually inspired by so many things. It's inspired by, the ideas you've probably picked up online, or it's inspired by your friend's house, or, some of the houses that you have probably seen in a movie somewhere. So usually startups are inspired by something. So the question is, can you put down how you envision that enterprise? And for those that already exist in the space that you're trying to start up an enterprise, if it's not a novel innovation, there's usually one that you can pick up and say, when I look at this organization where I want to start off, do my startup from, it has these key, aspects of its architecture. So let me just pick an example. If you're starting off a consultancy firm, you'll say, okay, if I want to start up a consultancy firm, what does a typical consultancy firm look like? Then you will do some bit of research and say, okay, I can see that it needs to have, let's say, some content that is generated. So what content should be generated, and on which channels should that content appear? So as you're trying to position yourself as a consultant, you'll say, maybe the YouTube is a good platform, so I'll use that channel. Maybe LinkedIn is, I'll pick up some of my leads from there, or maybe Facebook. So you'll say, okay, so one of the key capabilities that I need to have in my consultancy is content generation or content management. So then you begin to define all those things from that perspective. So you'll notice that, okay, what is the story that I want to tell? What is the content that I need to build? Which systems will I use? What processes? Because after a while, you can't keep doing the content, ad hoc. You need to be able to have a clear line of thought to say, with this theme, I can build content for the next 6 months. So that means you build content and it's just a matter of releasing it into these different channels. But then you can also ask yourself, well, if anyone was looking for a consultant like myself, what would inspire them to come to me? What is the challenge they are facing? What is their journey? What does it look like? What is it that maybe organizations have encountered with consultants that they don't like? And how do I therefore posture myself as a unique consultancy firm that will not, go ahead and repeat the same problems that those organizations have encountered with consultants? So it is something that you can pick if from an existing organization, if your startup is already in existing types of businesses, and you can just begin from there to say, okay, if this is what I have now, then these are the capabilities that I now need to evolve for the future. Then your investment now becomes even more specific, because okay, maybe the timing for this investment is not now, but this will give me the immediate value that I can get, so that I can continue to build my capabilities. Andrea, I hope that helps.
Andrea, I hope that helps.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I noticed that Alice has gone above and beyond, really, in terms of trying to expound on your questions. So that was a good one. I also like to ask Alice a more personal question now before I continue with the questions on the chat. And by the way, if there are other questions, let's have them so we take them in the next couple of minutes. Alice, what has been your transition? What has it been like in terms of your being a business architect? Would that be a perfect title to give your role and what you do? And again, do you work in a consultancy role at the moment? What is your current role like? What exactly is your current role? What does it look like?
Okay, so my current role is I head organizational change at a commercial bank in Uganda. So what it entails is really just picking up the bank's, first of all, participating in the bank's strategy formulation, and then picking the big picture and then unpacking it into implementable initiatives. So how I see myself in the organization is almost like an in-house consultant. And the team that I work with has to continually start thinking about, okay, we have this grand idea on strategy. Let's say we want to, we want to become the preferred, organization when it comes to small and medium enterprises. So it is just a one-line headline. The question is, what does that look like in terms of how the organization organizes itself? So we have to keep thinking about it from what does it look like to the customer? What does it look like from an organization, internal organization perspective? And then what is how do we collaborate with the people who generate the content, and how do they, put that information out there that we are, who we say we are going to be, that is the preferred organization for small and medium enterprise businesses. So we have to keep looking at the processes. We have to look at the projects that we now need to implement, but we have to evaluate a couple of strategic options and just look at the pros and cons, crunch the numbers, and then come up with a suggestion to management that this is the way to go. And if they approve it, then it becomes now a project that gets implemented. So where it is now is that there's a bit of mix between transformation and project management. We not only think about the ideas, but we also go ahead and implement them and demonstrate the value that is coming from those implementations. So that is what I currently do. Yeah.
I think it's such a beautiful thing to be doing on a day-to-day basis. You are a problem solver, you're a strategist. You are creating solutions almost on a day-to-day basis. That's so beautiful. And the Priya just took the thoughts out of my mind with her question, asking what are the particular skills that you would need So just by the way you described what you do on a day-to-day basis, I think creativity, yes? Can you confirm that? You need creative thinking as a skill, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you need to be innovative, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Any more skills you want to add to that so that Priya can, be satisfied with your answers?
So the thing about a business architect, the ability to connect dots is very important. And the only way you are able to connect the dots is by, first of all, understanding. So what that looks like is having conversations, because what we have in organizations right now is people have the blueprint in their minds, but it has never been put on paper. So by talking to these different subject matter experts, you're able to understand, okay, so this is how everything, works together. And then you're able to also get into reference architectures. I know one for the banking industry. It's called the banking, I think the acronym is BIAN, the Banking International Association, Architect Network. So that's where all the banking industry experts have come together to say, okay, for a typical bank, these are the capabilities that must be, resident. And so you're able to sort of map yourself against that reference architecture and say, okay, these we have, these we are yet to even think about, but this we are in the process of trying to get there. So to become a business architect, you just need to be able to see all the boxes, and not the boxes in terms of the organizational structure, but the boxes in terms of, what are the capabilities that we have? And capabilities simply just how people, processes, systems come together to create something. So if I was to give an example, let's say performance management. Yeah. So performance management, you're saying, okay, that is a capability that must exist. So what are the key processes there? Of course, you have, the goal planning, or how you set, the goals. You have the assessment process. You have the development plans that you need to put in place. So those are all key processes. But where does it happen? Do you have an HR system in place where that happens? Or are you still doing it on Excel sheets? Yeah. But who are the people involved in the process of performance management? So you have a line manager, you have those who are being assessed. And if you have maybe committees where there's a bit of moderation, and, how do you recognize talent, and how do you get the development needs from the line managers, and how do you now get to implement interventions to ensure that even the people as capabilities are evolving to where they need to be. So if you identify, for example, that we are in a space or in a season of artificial intelligence, the one thing that you should be looking at is, do we have digital talent within the organization that understands artificial intelligence? So in your capability mapping, you'd automatically see we are in trouble if we don't have anyone who understands artificial intelligence. So how do we quickly get them the skills, the training, so that they can begin, to understand it, set up the structures, and begin to evolve the organization towards adapting to artificial intelligence.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being elaborate with that. I see that there's a sense in which even the skill set requires evolution in itself, meaning you're observing the environment with the readiness to be adaptive in terms of the skills that you need to bring on board, almost like you're being futuristic, and being relevant, whatever comes. Thank you so much. One more question. Hopefully you can take this in less than 2 minutes. Yes. Final question here. What would you say has been the most challenging experience you've had with navigating change within your organization, or just your experience overall?
So change.
You can do that in 2 minutes.
Yes. So change is a very interesting. And let me just take you back to the slide that speaks to. Just give me a minute. There we go. So one of the interesting facets that has been quite challenging in my change journey is really on the people side. People are the ones that make decisions. They are the ones that create the capabilities. They are the ones who create an enabling environment. The biggest challenge I've had with navigating change, it has been around people. So you have people that are subject matter experts because they're in specific roles. But unfortunately, when you try to get out that value from them, you have almost like a black box. They cannot tell you that, hey, I might be lacking in this area where you expect a lot from me. So we might have to start a little far back in terms of first getting me up to speed to the basics, and then I can give you the value that you're looking for. So because of that information asymmetry, it has been very challenging. So you have people who know that they are not really where they need to be, making very critical decisions on the systems, on the processes, and creating the chaos that you're trying as much as possible to avoid when implementing change. So that has been the biggest one for me. So what I've learned to do over time is, not to assume. So what I do is to get a basic understanding of, this expertise area, and then I test a few things by having some preambles, some introductions, some brainstorming workshops, and that helps me to gauge where the different subject matters are with regard to the change that we're trying to implement. When I figure out that, we have a problem here, what I've done is to say, hey, perhaps we need to have a training or a workshop, bring in an experienced facilitator to first get everyone to the same understanding, and then we can implement the change. That has been the most challenging.
Amazing. If you had given me the answer to that question, my follow-up question would have been, what have you done to mitigate the challenges? But you went ahead already to just say what it was you did in mitigating challenges. Amazing. Oh, you're so brilliant. Thank you so much, Alice. I would hand over to Priya now. Thank you so much, Alice. It's been a wonderful time with you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. And I will share my screen again for the wrap up of the event. And Grace, over to you. Felicitate Alice for this wonderful session.
Wow, it's been a really, really wonderful session. Thank you so much, Alice. I think you've gone beyond just speaking to us and giving us consultancy advice for our businesses. So we really thank you for sharing a wealth of knowledge and experience and learning on your journey to change management in different organizations you've worked with. I'm sure a number of us took a lot out of this session today, and we're really grateful. Thank you so much. We're glad to have you on board. With your permission, I'll be adding you to our groups if that's okay with you. But as a token of an appreciation, we're handing you this certificate from Women PowerUp for sharing your learning experience and knowledge with us on the topic navigating the choppy waters of organizational change. So thank you so much, Alice. We love you, and we hope to see more of you around. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace. And I appreciate everyone that has made it to this event. Definitely on our end, it's Saturday evening. You could have been doing all sorts of things, but I appreciate you making the time for this conversation.
Thank you, Alice.
Amazing.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Alice. And over to Andrea now to unveil our next event.
Yes, thank you so much, Alice. It was awesome. I learned so much from you in this short amount of time, and I plan to implement them first thing Monday morning. And just to get you aware of what's happening our next session is our We Mentor session. And I'm proud to serve as the We Mentor lead, and I'm sourcing you great mentors who's coming to the community to speak about how we can become better women leaders and power up. So our speaker for our next event is Kim Welcome. Kim Welcome is a Bahamian communications expert that is highly sought after in her field of expertise. She is a voice coach. She is a mentor. She is a leader. And she is coming to speak to us about stepping into your personal power, where she's going to tell us about how different techniques and strategies on how we as women leaders can really know what power we have and how to exert it, and not only in our personal life, but in our professional life, so that we can achieve our outcomes and really achieve our dreams of success and everything else that goes along with being able to have you exert your personal power. So I hope that you guys would sign up for this event, or if you haven't done so already, I will drop the link for it in the chat. It is, like always, a free event, so please invite as many friends that you have, your sisters, cousins, aunties, uncles, nephews, nieces, parents, invite the whole family, your work staff, invite everyone. So please join us. I assure you, you will gain tremendous value from this session. And we will continue to bring you excellent mentors that will provide their expertise free of charge to help you become the best version of yourselves. So the link is in the chat. Back over to you, Priya.
Thank you, Andrea. And with this, we will wrap up our session for the month. And we will see you again on July 8th. Same time, of course, a different link. So don't forget to take the feedback. Again, menti.com. The link is already on the chat. And hopefully, we will see you again next time. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody. Amazing. Thank you.
Are we taking a picture
Bye.
before
Thank
we leave?
you, Alice.
Oh, we should take a picture. Yes, we should.
Yes.
We should take a, everyone please switch on your cameras if you can. And let us take a picture. Whoever can, please switch on your camera.
And by the way, Priya, Celia, and I did not color coordinate our outfits today.
Yes. Yes. That's right.
Yes. Next time we will. Yes, that's a good idea. Cecilia,
Thank you.
would you be able to take the picture?
Yes, I'm taking pictures. Yes.
This is here, Marissa, Catherine, if you can. Okay. Yeah,
Amazing.
one more. We have Marissa now.
Good.
Even she is all in the same color.
Yes, we are all in the same color.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Thank you very much. See you.
Amazing.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you,
next
Alice. Thank you,
time.
Priya. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Andrea.
Bye.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
Al.